name's Jessica Johnson. I was the administrator at Heritage Paradise, which was one of the 3 facilities that ended up burning to the ground last November during the Camp Fire in Paradise, California. A little bit of a background. I was hired early last year for this facility. It was a brand new, independently owned, unique, up-and-coming facility where I was hired and given the opportunity to pre-hire all of the department heads that I wanted to come in with as this new company. So I was able to go and hire staff that I knew and trusted in the community, knew that they were good at their position, and cared deeply for their residents. So with this team, I didn't realize at that point how big of a deal this was going to be and how much I was going to have to lean on this team in the upcoming months. There's a new program in California that California and the electrical company PG&E decided to come up with a program to prevent fires in fire-prone areas, Paradise being one of them. Part of that is predicting certain weather conditions and deciding if that's going to be a trigger for a potential fire. If that triggers, you would be issued a warning that the power would potentially be turned off, and for potentially up to a week. Paradise was issued that warning the Saturday before the fire, but the power was never turned off. The fire occurred November 8th. It was a Thursday. I was getting everything going in the morning, just my normal routine with my children. I have my daughter who's 5, her name's Rosalie, and my other daughter, Everly, who's 1. I was just getting them up and going, and I received a text from one of the staff members saying that the internet was down. So I called the IT guy, let him know. He said, okay, I'll be there. Let me get ready, and I will head up the hill and come to Paradise. I continue about my morning, and as I walk out my side door to go and get things put into my car, I see this huge cloud of smoke with ash already raining down. This is not the first time I had seen that in Paradise in the 7 years that I'd lived there. But there was something that immediately felt wrong with this cloud of smoke and that morning. I can go back inside, continue getting my girls ready, and make a couple calls. First to my husband and say, hey, have you heard anything about the fire? Do you know what's going on? Should I be concerned? He says, no, the fire is nowhere near Paradise. You'll be fine. And this is normal for Paradise. There would be fires distance away, and then they are always put out before it makes it to Paradise. So then I make another call to one of my supervisors and say, have you walked out your front door yet? Have you seen this cloud of smoke? Because I'm a little concerned, and I'll probably bring my girls to work this morning, just to be safe. But same response, her husband in the background, no, it's in Polga, don't worry about it, it's nowhere near us, we should be fine. So I get my girls in the car and I start driving to work, and I can see the cloud of smoke, and it just looks more ominous as I'm going. I get to work, it's a 5-minute drive. I get to work and it's about 7:45 in the morning, and I have both girls with me. I walk into the front door, and my director of nursing and director of staff development immediately rush me at the door, and we have a quick meeting with them voicing their concerns of what they're seeing outside and asking if we should just start prepping for a potential evacuation. I agree with them after driving around town and say, let's get the CNAs to pack the bags for the residents so we have some clothes, and let's get the nurses to finish their med pass so that at least we can bag those up individually as well. So as they're going about this, in the next 15 minutes, I have several staff members run up saying that they can see, or family and friends are calling them, and they can see in the distance the fire is traveling over the ridges and making its way to Paradise. So you can see in this image the way it's kind of has to cover all of the canyons. Our facility's on the Skyway side, and the fire started on the Pence side. So as we're getting these calls and the staff are telling me that they're seeing the fire getting closer and closer, I make a call to a facility that I know in Chico where I have close friends and it's one of the larger occupancy facilities, and say, hey, it's not looking great up here. If we have to leave, can I take every available bed? Because we're gonna need it for all of our residents. And then I also ask if they don't mind sending up their driver with the van so that we have at least another van coming to help us with these residents. They say yes, no problem. I make another call to another friend who is the owner of the only non-emergent transportation company in the area, inform him of what I'm seeing and let him know that, I'm a little concerned, it's not looking great up here. If we have to evacuate, can you send up some vehicles? And he agrees to that as well. We continue about our morning and are just getting things together, getting the residents up, and it's about 8:30 when the fire has reached the outer edge of Paradise and the first evacuation order is issued. This is also around the time where my supervisor shows up and says, you're evacuating the residents? I was like, oh, well, yes. That was a huge moment of doubt on my part, because am I overreacting? Am I removing the residents from the facility unnecessarily? Because that's definitely not what I want to do, especially being a new administrator. But I make a call to my friend Ashley, who's driving around town, and say, where are you seeing this? What was the evacuation order that you just saw? And she confirms my instinct to continue on and continue to get these residents safely evacuated out of Paradise. I tell my supervisor, yes, we're gonna just do this. I make the calls again, since this evacuation order has been actually issued for the outside of Paradise, to those accepting facility and the transportation company, and say, we're definitely gonna have to go. They may not have issued the evacuation for us yet, but it's only a matter of time. Please send up your vehicles as soon as you can. During all of this, I still have my girls there. So my oldest, Rosalie, is starting to look a little worried as she can see us scrambling around, getting the residents together and talking about the fire getting closer and closer. My sister, who also worked there as the staffing coordinator, had been watching them during all of this, and I say, you guys got to go. I can't think about them being here also while we're evacuating the residents, because I know this is going to happen. So I send them down into the traffic of Skyway to get them started on the path. At this point, there's already traffic, and it's not moving quickly. Several minutes later, we have a guy pull up, and it's about 9:30 at this point, pull off of the traffic area on the Skyway, come up and urgently say, the fire's only 150 yards away, you guys gotta go. So we, at this point, don't have any vans because no one has shown up yet. They're trying to get to us, but with the traffic, it's not working well. So I yell to the staff, get your vehicles together, line them up out front. We have to transfer as many of the residents into your cars, and you all have to go. So we start doing that. We start transferring the residents into vehicles, getting them up and ready. Most of them are sitting right there, and we're just kind of going with it. So as one car gets loaded, they go and enter into this line of traffic, exiting our parking lot, but at that point, it's still 2 lanes down. You can start to see the nerves of the staff at this point, because the fire is literally breathing down our necks. The cloud of smoke is getting worse. We start to hear these explosions. At first, I don't have any clue what it is, and I say to the maintenance man, what is this? And he tells me, oh no, that's propane tanks exploding. I was like, oh, okay. So not only is there fire, but now we all get to listen to the propane tanks explode. Great. So we continue to get the residents going. I noticed that we're not gonna take all the wheelchairs because we don't have any room for them at this point. We were able to load all the wheelchairs that we could into the back of someone's truck, but everyone else had cars, and we could get the residents in, but not the wheelchairs. So I make a call to the facility that accepted our residents and say, hey, we're gonna show up with all these residents and not have a lot of wheelchairs. Their response is very quick, telling me that, don't worry about it, we will have those ready, and we'll worry about that side on our end. This is an image that you could see from the outer areas, and this is Paradise. So everyone that I'm calling is seeing this and concerned. So even though the staff is starting to seem concerned, I was starting to, you have to kind of keep yourself together in that moment as this is all happening so quickly. The residents remain pretty calm. I'm walking through, and I have a resident lean over and tell me, you guys are doing a great job. I was like, oh, thank you. Because in that moment, I was a little stressed and not sure if we were doing a great job. I was doing what I could, and we were all doing what we could, but hearing that made me feel better about the situation. A moment later, we had another resident yelling at us that she's not leaving without a recliner. And I was like, okay. Well, I'm a little concerned we're not making it out, so we're not going to worry about the recliner right now, but we will look at that later. We keep everything going, and we have a majority of our residents into the line of traffic by about 10:30, and this is a majority of our staff and our residents, except for 7 staff members and 7 residents who require a Hoyer lift transfer, and the vans have not shown up yet. So, what do you do at that point? I kind of take a step away and go and make a call to my husband and say, hey, he had actually driven up into Paradise and was trying to attempt to get to me and the girls. But even though he knew that the girls were on their way trying to get out of Paradise, he was still trying to get to me to grab me so that he could take me once we got the residents going. I said, I can't wait for you to show up. I don't know when the vans are going to get here. I don't want to know that you're trying to get to me, but the kids are getting out, and I have no idea when or if I'm getting out. I have to wait until the residents are fully transferred into vehicles or safely into some sort of vehicle until I can leave. So I need you to start driving back out of Paradise. I can't know that I'm stuck here and you're also. We need someone for the kids because this isn't okay for both of us to be up here. We basically say goodbye because we have no idea. There's several moments where I don't know if I'll make it out, but this was one of them because the vehicles hadn't shown up. So we say goodbye and we love each other, and I take a moment and breathe, and then I make a call to the California Department of Public Health and inform them, these vehicles that I called a couple hours ago still haven't shown up. Do you have anything for us? Any emergency transfer or emergent transportation? Because right now, I don't know what we're gonna do and the vehicles aren't here. They tell me, yes, as soon as something's available, they'll send it. But we're stuck in the middle of the fire, and the fire's 150 yards away. So I walk back over to the group of the residents and the staff, and they're talking about sheltering in place, transferring the residents with a Hoyer lift into the back of trucks so that at least we have some sort of plan. As we're discussing this, I turn around and I see all 4 vans that we had called hours earlier driving up in between the 2-lane traffic as the cars are moving to the side, parting the cars to get up to us. I ran over, showed them exactly where they needed to go. Here's the residents, let's get them transferred. Said thank you, I can't believe you're here finally. I know that we can get the residents into some sort of vehicle. The staff start getting them all into the vehicles that showed up. And at that point, I'm able to, because we have the residents into the vans, I'm able to hop into one of the staff members' cars, and the rest of the staff are able to hop into their own personal cars at this point. The traffic starts to slowly move from where we're at, and it's two lanes, one way, gridlock. We know that the fire's back behind us from that guy, and then also, we had been receiving, the staff that were still there, calls from the staff that had made it further down the way, down Skyway, that now there is a fire ahead of us also. So not only are we having the fire behind us, but now we have to drive towards it. But there's no other option. There's only a couple streets that you can kind of drive through. So we hop into the vehicles, the traffic starts going for just a couple minutes, and we're able to get about 100 yards away from our facility, and then it stops again. And then we're stuck in gridlock, and we have nowhere to go. We actually sit in this gridlock for about an hour as the smoke gets thicker and the propane tank explosions get closer and closer and more frequent. And at a certain point, I look at the nurse, Trudy, whose car I'm in, and say, I can't sit here any longer. We're not moving. I don't want to be here. I know that my children are only a couple miles down, even though they left hours earlier. I'm going on foot. I'm not going to sit here any longer. I don't want to die. So she doesn't want to leave her vehicle. So she stays, but one of the nurses in the car in front of us gets out and does the same thing with me. So we decide to run 1.5 miles down the Skyway. This isn't exactly, because I wasn't taking pictures as I was running, this isn't exactly what I saw, but it was a very eerily similar picture that I thought it would be a good representation for you all to see. There was only fire on one side, not two sides when I was running. But we're running down and there's just blazing fire. And it's right behind a gas station too, so that made me feel good. So we keep running. At this point, the phones had been out for about a half hour to an hour with no contact to anyone else. For my husband, my siblings, my daughters, there's nothing. My phone actually pops into service, and it's my friend Ashley who had helped me earlier. And she's frantically asking what's going on, where am I? And I say, I'm running down Skyway, it's on fire, and all I can hear is explosions. You have to make sure my children get out. And then it cuts out. You can imagine how she felt after that call. We continue on, and it's just getting darker and darker and darker outside because the smoke has cut out the sun. We are running and running and running, and at about 1.5 miles down, we see some other staff that had left earlier in a vehicle. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. We're going to jump into this car because we're not finding anything at this point in the chaos and the darkness of what we're in the middle of. So we jump into the staff's vehicle, but the area that we had left on foot ended up having to be evacuated. So emergency personnel started running down that road that we were all stuck on, saying you have to get out, you have to run into a building, and you have to shelter in place. So this is an image of some of the cars that were left behind from where I was at. The vehicle that I ended up leaving did actually burn because, everyone had to leave their vehicles. So that area, I'm glad I continued to, trust my instinct here. That area did end up burning, and everyone lost all their vehicles. My friend, all made it, no problem. They had to just shelter in place and then get bussed out from there. So here's an image of one of the staff members that we found, and we jumped into their vehicle. So you can see how dark it is. It's only noon at this point. It was as dark as midnight with the clouds and, as dark as you could imagine in the middle of the night, only it's noon at this point. So we're driving along the Skyway, and there's moments where it's on fire, there's moments where it's not, but it's taking time. I end up seeing my mom and my brother parked on the side of the road, and they're waiting for a family member that ran back to their house to try and put the fire out. I yell to them, you can't park here, you have to leave. What are you doing? Everyone's leaving town, you have to go. I hop out of that car, jump into my mother's car, and we make it out at about 2 o'clock. So it takes about 4 hours to get out of Paradise, and it's only a 20-mile drive from our facility to the accepting facility, and it took us 4 hours. At about 2 o'clock, the phone service pops back in. I'm able to access, my husband's safe, my girls are safe, everyone made it out, no issues, but I don't have time to kind of appreciate that. I have to then go to the accepting facility and make sure all the residents are okay. So I get there, I talk with the administrator's willing to take 35 of our 56 residents, and then we kind of section out who is going to go where from there. 2 other facilities in Chico take a handful, and then another facility in Yuba City takes the rest. It's not until about 10:30 that night when I know that all of our residents are securely in an accepting facility, and I'd like to say that I was able to take a moment and breathe at that point, knowing that all of this is over. But the house that my family decided to evacuate to, family members, is now in the evacuation warning in Chico. I was like, okay. And after going through that situation, I was not not going through it again. I couldn't run down a road while it's on fire anymore. It's not going to happen. So we end up driving another hour and a half away to be as far away as we possibly can so that I can take a moment and actually fall asleep for an hour or so. That day was something that, you'll never forget. Anyone that went through it, it definitely affected everyone differently. This is my house, was my house. Luckily, at least I brought my kids, and my friend was able to get my dogs, and my husband got our cat. So I didn't have to worry about that kind of stuff because we were able to make sure that the most important things made it out. But there's certain things that trigger me. It's the smell of smoke now. Not every smoke, but certain brush fire type smokes, and it gets me a little anxious after being through that. The residents, for the most part, we all made it out safely. All the staff from our facility and all the residents made it out. Actually, all the residents from all 3 facilities made it out without any injuries. But any evacuation, especially that type of evacuation, didn't take well to some of the residents. So, there's the after effect of evacuating and being in that type of situation. For the most part, the residents are doing all right, except for the few that haven't taken well to the change. The staff still have moments, myself included, where we may not respond as pleasantly as we would have before, or take a moment and have a breakdown, depending on the situation. But I was offered a position at one of the facilities that actually took a group of our residents, so I was able to hire a lot of the staff. So I've been able to stay close with a lot of the staff that we all went through. At this point, we're family because of this type of situation. And I can't imagine going through all of that with another group of individuals. Here's where the facility was. There was a facility back there. This is the parking lot. And the 3 things that were a takeaway for me was that, you have to trust your instinct in that type of situation. You can't let someone kind of make you pause. And being a new administrator, that was hard for me. So always trusting your instinct in this type of situation, I think, will be the right way to go about any of this. Because trusting my instinct and making quick decisions made a huge difference that day. Surrounding yourself with the right people, because you'll never know when you need to lean on them for support, especially in this type of situation. And making those connections in the community, because if we hadn't have made those connections in the community, I would not have had those vehicles for transport, because there was no time for emergency transport. It just wasn't an option. So those friends that we had made in the community, in the skilled nursing community, were the way that we got our last residents out and were able to get the last of the staff out. Here is a picture that we all took, not all of us, but a group of us. We tried to get as many people, so we took aftermath pictures, and here's a large portion of the ones that were there that day that went through the evacuation, and then there's the facility in the background. And then here's another one that's right in front. That part didn't burn down. It's the little logo in the front. But it was definitely a crazy day, and I just am glad that I had those people with me to make it a successful day, because without them, it would not have been the same. Thank you.